Good time of day, guys. My name is Godzi, and welcome back to another episode of Higurashi When They Cry, Ch.8 Matsuribayashi. Sorry for the lack of episodes somewhat recently, but shit happens. That's really all I have to say about that. Yeah, last episode we got even more of Takano's backstory, and it seems like that's going to persist through this episode as well. And yeah, we saw generally what happened to her buddies at the daycare. Not the daycare, that's not what it's called, the orphanage. And it was horrible and messed up. And I don't even know what was going on with the fucking chicken coop. But yeah, they're very, very over the top, cartoonishly evil to a point. But yeah, I'm wondering how the fuck she's gonna get out of it, because I don't really remember much of her backstory at all. All I knew is that she had her grandfather. That was it. So yeah, but before we get into this episode, I want to have a short or potentially very long discussion about Sotsu, because I have a theory that I want to discuss. So yeah, we're gonna be going into spoiler time for a minute. So if you don't want spoilers through episode 6 of Sotsu, and potentially the arc succeeding, the last arc to finish airing, I don't even want to say its name just in case it's a spoiler, then yeah, don't listen to this, and mute until I pull down the menu, and also look away from your screen for about like a minute, because I have something to prove. Alright, so I have a theory about what's going to happen in Tatari Akashi. However, I want to preface this by saying that this is not at all based on the leaks that happened for Tatari Akashi, because I heard this morning that there were fucking leaks for Tatari Akashi, and I have not looked at them. My theory is not at all based on them. I wrote this theory last Saturday. It is currently Monday, August 2nd. The leaks came out overnight or this morning. Basically, while I was fucking asleep. So, yeah. Or maybe they did happen last night and I just didn't hear about them till this morning. But yeah, trust me, I did not look at the leaks. I can prove this because the document that I wrote this stuff all in, I'm going to adjust the window so that it only shows the little last edit made thingy. You can see right there. Last edit was made at 11:04 p.m. Last night, because it's currently 1:03 p.m. on Monday. So yeah, that was not me adjusting my theory, though. That was me writing about fucking season 2 of Yuru Camp. I'm writing notes on every show that I watch this year, so that my top 10 video that I make next year will be easier, because I kind of realized last year, kind of difficult to write about a show that I watched 9 months ago without remembering much of what happened in it, other than I liked it. So, yeah, this will make it easier. Sotsu has easily the fucking longest section so far, too. But, yeah, I'm gonna turn on my fan because I'm getting a little warm in here. It is still summer, even if it is August, so cooling down a marginal amount. Just fucking kidding. But, yeah, I want to say what this theory is. I'm more or less going to speak it word for word from this document. It might be a little all over the place, because that's how I write if I'm not writing an actual script or something that's meant to be read. So, yeah. Regardless, I'll get into it real quick. So, before episode 7, I have an idea of what may go down in Tatari Akashi. I've seen a theory going around that the world of Tatari Damashi was the one that Satoko hoped would become the perfect world she wanted. Since there's major similarities to Minagoroshi, how it's the same exact world as Minagoroshi, except Oishi is more like how he was in Tatari Goroshi. Teppei isn't abusive anymore, and Takano doesn't kill everyone at the end. I performed that line horribly, but I hope it got across. And I agree with this theory wholeheartedly, and it got me thinking of how exactly everything went to shit by the end. Because as we see in Tatari Damashi generally, Satoko gets saved by everyone, she goes to the festival, brings Keiichi to her house, then Keiichi and Teppei fight each other, Satoko escapes, and then Oishi kills everyone except for Rena at the festival. I have technically two theories as to what led to these events, but one doesn't involve Satoko hoping for this world to be the one she truly wants, unless you interpret it as her preparing for the worst or just her undermining Takano's scheme. But the theory that I like most is that Satoko does hope for this world to be the one she wants, thinking that the similarities to Higurashi would make Rika realize how much she cares about Satoko and everyone else in Hinamizawa and choose to give up on going to St. Lucia's. But after Satoko gets quote-unquote saved, because Teppei's not abusive anymore, Rika tells her something along the lines of, "Now I can finally share my dream with you," which makes Satoko realize that her hopes were pointless. So at the festival, she decides to make Keiichi go batshit, and brings her to her house to inject him. Since Minagoroshi is similar to Tatarigoroshi in that Keiichi is more susceptible to Hinamizawa Syndrome than anyone else at that point, except for probably Shion. So she goes there, and after injecting him, she realizes that everyone's... Wait, what? Did I write this a little out of fucking context? Hold on. Out of order? I think I wrote this out of order. Okay. Okay, now I know what I wrote there. I just made one error. So, she brings Keiichi to her house, and before injecting him, she realizes the hard way that everyone's efforts to save her from Teppei made Oishi go mad. This is also a theory that I didn't make that I'm borrowing into my own, so just know that I didn't come up with this part. Since Oishi realized that the whole village ganged up on one dude who didn't even do anything, being Teppei, it made him suspicious of the whole village perpetuating the curse that he's so determined to stop. So Oishi's already interrogated Teppei and realized he's innocent, so he somehow gets Satoshi's baseball bat that Satoko probably just took from the school, I guess. That's a big plot hole, I realize, but somehow Oishi gets the baseball bat, and then he starts beating up Keiichi, since Keiichi was, you know, kind of the ringleader of all this. And so, Satoko, having not taken her medication, she hallucinates Teppei over Oishi. So she technically doesn't realize that Oishi went mad. She thinks Teppei did somehow. And then Keiichi starts beating up Oishi in self-defense. So eventually during the scuffle, Keiichi passes out before he kills or knocks out Oishi, I guess. And Satoko, in her hysteria, tries to destroy this world that's gone to shit by injecting Oishi, who she still sees as Teppei, this is the kicker, with several of the syringes she got from the clinic, which further worsens Oishi's symptoms and his suspicion of the three families. And I guess Satoko would then run away after somehow making him suspect Rika the most? I don't know, I have some holes in my theory, I realize. That, or, and this I think makes more sense, injecting someone with L5 multiple times creates a new unnatural level that makes them target the Queen Carrier instinctively. Either way, so then Oishi goes to the festival and kills a shit ton of people. Satoko probably then takes her medication to calm down, or just does so, naturally. Goes to the festival and hears Rena scream that Oishi is killing everyone, and she gets confused, thinking, but I injected my uncle, why is Oishi going mad? She could then recollect her actions and realize, holy shit, using multiple syringes makes people go especially crazy and or target Rika. I could use this in future worlds if I need to. She then dies and that's the end. So, the other alternative theory I have is that Satoko already knows that Minagoroshi's events won't create the perfect world she wants. I don't like this theory as much, but I think it kinda makes more sense, honestly. But regardless, so while most of the village is in Okinomiya dealing with the Child Consultation Center, she's preparing to make everything go to shit, or research ways to make her job easier. She might use Teppei as a test dummy for Hinamizawa Syndrome and research how it works, or steal Takano's and Irie's research to further learn how it works. She might then learn about the Queen Carrier if she doesn't already know about it, or possible levels beyond L5 that make people instinctively target the Queen Carrier. And most of these 5 episodes are just lore or something. I like my first theory better, but most realistically to fill the runtime of this whole arc, I think it'll be a mix of both of these theories. like, Satsuko in this arc is like if Rika and Minagoroshi had listened to Hanyu and prepared to be disappointed just in case. Like, Satsuko hopes that this world will be the one that she wants, but she's realistic about it and uses the excess free time she has, where no one is paying attention to her except for her now useful pawn of an uncle, and researches ways she can fuck everything up in this world should it not work out. She learns a ton, and then after getting saved, my first theory then happens with Rika making Satsuko realize this world isn't her perfect world, and then she tries to inject Keiichi and blah blah blah. I already said all this. Am I right in my theory? Probably not. But I'm confident enough that at the very least Satsuko will learn something about Hinamizawa Syndrome, either purposefully or accidentally in her hysteria, that makes her able to make Akasaka, Akane, Kimiyoshi, and Keiichi go crazy in similar ways about the itchiness and parasites in Nekodamashi. That's also why I think, like, I thought originally, I'm off script right now, back when that episode of Nekodamashi aired, this is a different type of Hinamizawa Syndrome. This is not the same shit that we had before. And if it was instead of Keiichi, it was like Irie, or Takano, or Chie, or Oryo, or Kasai, or somebody who was going crazy, and still doing that whole parasite thing, then I would probably be able to look past it and just be like, okay, I guess older people just are more susceptible to the itchiness and think about parasites when they get injected. But no, Keiichi did the same fucking thing, and I feel like Keiichi, someone who's already gotten Hinamizawa Syndrome before, being thrown in there is supposed to make us think, okay, this is different. So I've always thought that it was from the get-go, so I think it is a different kind. And so, I guess multiple injections or some other stimulus is what results in Oishi, Akasaka, Akane, Kimiyoshi, and Keiichi talking about these parasites. So, yeah, back to the script. Tatari Akashi being 5 episodes gives me hope, though, that at least no matter what happens in this arc, it'll be interesting or entertaining, if not a train wreck of unsatisfying answers, but regardless, I don't think that's possible. No way does this arc have predictable answers. I feel like everything we were given in Tatari Damashi is so vague and confusing that Tatari Akashi has to be different from Oni Akashi and Wata Akashi in a big way. So I'm excited for it regardless. So basically, to sum everything up, I think on one hand it's very, very possible that Satsuko does hope for the world of Tatari Damashi / Tatari Akashi to be the world that she wants because of the similarities to Minagoroshi, but then when it doesn't work out for her, because Rika's just like, I want to share my dream with you, she decides to inject Keiichi, ends up injecting Oishi several times, or giving him that parasite stimulus, I'll call it, that results in him targeting Rika and leaving Keiichi alive. And so that results in how she's able to deal in Nekodamashi. Or, on the other hand, she realizes that this world isn't gonna fucking work out the way that she wants it to, so she researches Hinamizawa Syndrome in her free time, and finds out about this parasite thing in Queen Carrier. So, yeah, that's what I generally think is going to happen in Tatari Akashi. If this is at all similar to what was shown in the leaks, then it's coincidence, because I haven't looked at them. So, yeah, I wrote this shit back on Saturday, and in fact, to fucking prove that I wrote all this without editing any of it, because it still says 11:04 p.m. there. Badoo, 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 badoo. All these words, you can pause if you want to. I said all of this, and I wrote it at least as of last night if you don't want to believe me. So, yeah, just want to prove that shit. And so, yeah, let's jump back into it. Hello again. Hopefully you weren't looking at your screen the last 10 seconds, because I just threw my whole fucking document up there. But, yeah, regardless, let's continue reading. I don't think I can voice a sniffle. I don't think I can voice 3 sniffles. Or 5. How long have I been crying? I don't even know how long I've been comforted like this. Oh. Okay, I guess he already saved you. My grandfather's hand is on my cheek to comfort me. I'm holding his hand lovingly and pressing my cheek against it. Are you okay?
Grandpa...
I'm not able to voice crying right now, sorry. My grandfather put his other hand on my head. The warmth of his palms gradually calmed me down. Piles of documents were all around me. It was a mistake to sort through data while lying on a fluffy carpet. I must have fallen asleep and had a terrible dream. If you sleep facing down, the pressure on your chest makes it easier to have nightmares. It's getting quite late. Why don't you go to sleep, Miyoko?
I'm fine. I took a nap, so I'm not sleepy anymore. I'm almost done, so I'm going to finish up, okay?
You have school tomorrow. You should go to sleep. Otherwise, you'll get scolded for yawning again. I've been going to bed late recently. Because of that, I yawn a lot at school. My teacher must have written a note to my grandfather.
I'm fine. I'll go to sleep as soon as I'm done. So please let me finish, okay? Besides, you shouldn't mind me. Go back to your study and continue with your article.
The day for him to present his findings is approaching. He's been working so hard, devoting himself to his research, but there's unfortunately a limit to what an individual can do. He needs a collaborator in order to go further with his research. He has to explain that his investigation could be the key to solving the mysteries of human behavior, and make people understand just how important his work is. But this research is about a very complicated subject, so he couldn't seek assistance from just anyone. Someone will be able to help him one day. Believing that, my grandfather earnestly continued his research. I want to help him more, but all I can do is sort through his data and tidy up his materials. I also assist him around the house so he can concentrate more on his research. He always tells me how helpful I am, but that isn't enough for me. I will study hard, get into a good college, and learn many things so I can actually be of assistance to his research. I'm a mediocre student right now, and I don't particularly like school, but I will do it. I want to help my grandfather. If his heart were to fail and he couldn't continue his research, I wouldn't hesitate to cut open my chest and offer my heart up for him. If he needs lungs, I'll give him my lungs. If any of his organs fail, I'll give him mine. There's nothing strange about those feelings. They're perfectly normal ones. For if he had found me even a day later, I might not have been alive. Or even if I lived, it would either be without my body intact, or with my mind lost to me. In other words, I'm alive because my grandfather came to save me. If he hadn't rushed to find me, I wouldn't be here. So I won't hesitate to give up my life for him. Moreover, I'd be more than happy to do that. Even though I want to be with him forever, human lives aren't immortal. Just like how my parents died. It happened so suddenly, without any warning. I will never heal from my parents' deaths. But now that I have my grandfather, I'm not sad. However, his existence isn't eternal either. He may disappear all of a sudden for any unexpected reason. Just like my parents. That's why I wish to be a part of him. That way, no matter what happens, we will be together forever. I don't want to be alone ever again. I want to be with my grandfather forever. I want to help him forever. Okay. Then be sure to go to sleep after you finish this, okay? Promise?
Yep, I promise.
We pinky promised after that. We smiled at each other, and my grandfather went back to his study. The dried up tears are making my cheeks itch. I headed to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. I looked at my face in the mirror. None of my grandfather's features are recognizable on my face. Of course they aren't. We're not related. He must have a family too, but I've never heard about them. He doesn't seem to want to talk about that subject, so I don't ever ask him about it. I don't care if he has real grandchildren or not. Even if I'm not related to him, I'm a granddaughter of Hifumi Takano. I'm not just a granddaughter either. I want to be more than that. I don't want a parent and child relationship, nor a lover's relationship, nothing like that, thank God. You didn't even really need to mention that last part. But thank you, I guess? I want something more certain that binds our souls. Something that not even a tragedy can destroy. I am Miyoko Takano, Hifumi Takano's granddaughter. Maybe it should be Mio instead. That's what my grandfather sometimes calls me. I want to succeed Hifumi's spirit. Since his name counts from 1 to 3, I want us to share that 3 and be the 4th in his line. I see. Today, my name changes. I wrote that new name in the mirror. Mio Takano. What a wonderful name for the new me. Okay. Sunny. Colonel, sir! Good to see you again. Ah. Takano-kun! Come on, no more Colonel stuff. No. I was worried when I heard you were ill. You sure look great now. Ah ha 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 ha. My grandfather always told me he doesn't have any friends. He used to tell me everyone died in the war. But that's not true. He has one very close friend. This is him. He's an elderly man my grandfather calls Colonel Koizumi. I don't know exactly where they met, but every time they get together, all they talk about is the military and the war. So I guess that's where they met. Look at you, Mio-chan! How tall are you now?
We just had a physical checkup the other day, and I think I've grown 2 centimeters.
That's wonderful. Good girl. Make sure you eat well, play a lot, and grow up big and healthy. I envy you, Takano-kun, for having such a cute granddaughter. Mr. Koizumi knows that my grandfather and I aren't related, but he always calls me his granddaughter. That makes me very happy, so I poured a little more black tea in his cup. After I finished serving tea, I left with a bow. I want to stay and listen to them talk, but I guess my grandfather doesn't want me to hear stories of the war, so he always makes me leave. I left before I was told to. But having to leave doesn't mean I need to go to a different room. I just headed to the other side of this huge living room instead. Although I'm not right by them, I can still sit on a sofa and listen to their conversation. And if they need something, I can come help them right away. I try to earn points that way to prove I'm useful. I sat on a sofa away from them and started reading an encyclopedia. While doing that, I tried to listen to their conversation. That's great! The professor said they want to come over on Sunday, the week after next. Really? Thank you very much, Koizumi-san. Don't mention it. This just means the report you wrote was that interesting, Takano-kun. They're showing a lot of interest. They even said it's possible that this research could receive the Nobel Prize. A Nobel Prize? That sounds wonderful. My grandfather laughed. Since he laughed so cheerfully, something great must have happened. Mr. Koizumi must have shown the society my essay was... Wait, what? Mr. Koizumi must have shown the society the essay my grandfather was about to announce and gauge their reactions. And supposedly, they found it extremely interesting. That means they recognize the value of my grandfather's research. That makes me happy too. But what worries me is that you'll get infected with the syndrome yourself. Make sure you don't end up clawing out your own throat, okay? Well, maybe I'm already infected. But Hinamizawa Syndrome is harmless if you live a normal life. It was a dangerous disease back when the villagers believed in Oyashiro-sama and bound themselves with strict rules. But those have faded over time, and now people rarely show symptoms unless something major happens. After that many cases, a patient's emotional state has a lot to do with how the syndrome develops. As long as you live a normal life, there's nothing to worry about. So when one is under a lot of pressure, like during the war, the disease gets worse. That's right. Well, there's nothing to worry about. The subjective symptom of the initial stages is a paranoia akin to that in depression. Once you notice it happening, you can teach yourself to relax emotionally and physically by using my breathing method. And you should also get at least 9 hours of sleep a night over a 1-week period. That's how you prevent it from worsening. In fact, of all the Hinamizawan soldiers under my direction, not even one died mysteriously. As he talks, Grandfather started demonstrating the Takano breathing method and a bizarre exercise technique. According to him, this technique relaxes the body and lets blood and lymphatic fluid flow smoothly. As a result, you relax emotionally too. But the movements involved in the technique are so weird, I had to look away because my grandfather looked so silly. That was the one thing about his research that I felt bad about. Oh. Grandfather asked me to do this exercise too. I don't want to make him sad, so I do it when instructed. I'm glad to hear that. Hideo Noguchi died in the middle of his research, so please be careful, okay? However, Noguchi-sensei's great work is still acknowledged even after his death. As a researcher, I'm sure that was his long-term goal. Grandfather tells me about Hideo Noguchi often. He was born as the son of a poor farmer, but he studied hard and became a doctor. However, he was mistreated because of his background, so he left Japan. He moved to the United States. There, he made many accomplishments as a researcher. He discovered a vaccine for yellow fever. Grandfather's background is somewhat similar to his, so he often said that of all researchers, he admired him the most. Hideo Noguchi died in North Africa. While he discovered a vaccine for yellow fever, he heard it wasn't effective on yellow fever in North Africa. He went there to research it, came down with the disease, and died. A researcher losing his life for his research. Sometimes that is a test of a researcher's courage. In that sense, Grandfather is very brave to visit Hinamizawa himself to gather information. He himself says he may already be infected. Although my grandfather estimates from ancient texts that the Hinamizawa Syndrome was only a menace centuries ago, and now it's no different from the usual bacteria that share a symbiosis with humans. Many people became ill with the disease during the war, but that was because they were in an extremely abnormal situation. In today's peaceful environment, it's almost impossible for a person to develop symptoms. He sounds very optimistic, but he never brought me with him to Hinamizawa, so maybe he isn't as optimistic as all that. However, since I live with him, there's a possibility that I'm already infected as well. But I'm not worried at all. That's because my grandfather has taught me that as long as I maintain myself physically and emotionally, I won't develop any symptoms. I know all about the horrible terminal symptoms of Hinamizawa Syndrome, but I'm not overly fearful of them. Grandfather is enjoying his conversation with Mr. Koizumi. That's understandable. Mr. Koizumi told him some people showed great interest in his report. They even want to come over on Sunday, the week after next, to meet and talk to him directly. With the rapid advance of modern medicine, unexplored frontiers are steadily dwindling. Was it possible the Hinamizawa Syndrome my grandfather discovered might be a new continent in the field? It'll be decided in 2 weeks. It sounds like there will be more than one person coming. And it also sounds like they're all important people in the society. They're all rich and famous, yet they aren't satisfied with just that. They all want to be involved with something that's worth an international award. This is a chance to gain assistance and sponsorship at the same time. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll make sure to be here. Good luck! Thank you very much. I owe you everything. It's too early to say that. Let's wait until you find some sponsors. When that time comes, let's have a toast with that treasured wine of yours. That was the last of their conversation. My grandfather kept his head bowed until Mr. Koizumi was gone. It sounded like he set up this great chance for my grandfather. So I bowed my head just like him. Did you hear that? Finally, there's a chance for me. There are people who are interested in my report.
I know, I heard. Now you'll have people to fund you and people to help with your research.
Well, that's not set in stone yet. Although he didn't want to admit it, he had a good feeling about it. The research he had conducted all alone was finally about to gain recognition.
Sunday, the week after next?
Quite! I'll be busy. Their first impression depends on my presentation. Did I read that wrong? No, I didn't. I have to rearrange my data. No, I probably should... Oh, fuck. I probably should practice explaining things in front of people. Anyway, I have to make sure I don't forget anything.
Boy, it'll be a lot of work to rearrange your data. Your handwriting is bad, so maybe you should write bigger.
Anyway, I'll be busy. The next 2 weeks will go by fast.
You're right. I'll help you too. All the formalin jars have to be dusted. Also, we'll need to straighten our rolled up documents. Do you think leaving them laid out under the rug overnight would fix it?
We have plenty of things to do. Mio, could you help me?
Of course. I'll skip school for it.
No, you can't miss school.
We laughed together, thrust our fists into the air, and motivated ourselves to work hard toward the week after next. Since that day, my grandfather spent more time in his study. It's not easy to create a report that you're going to show other people. Copying machines hadn't been invented back then, so everything had to be handwritten. He knows it's somewhere, but he just can't remember where he put the data he needs. As for me, I have to make sure I have enough guest cups to serve tea, so I'm counting them. Do I have enough tea leaves? Maybe I should get something to go with tea. My grandfather knows nothing about these things. There's a whole list of chores to do. I need to clean the windows so the room will be bright. What else? The 2 weeks pass quickly while we busy ourselves getting things done. What a wonderful 2 weeks it is. I can finally feel that I'm actually doing something to help my grandfather with his research. I hope the day of the meeting will be a memorable one for my grandfather. I hope that day will be a beautiful and clear one. Just as I wished, the day is beautiful. Evening. My grandfather, having dressed formally, paced around his study nervously. I'm also in a beautiful dress. I've only worn it once before, at my piano recital. But I'm not nervous like my grandfather. His silly nervousness actually relaxes me. Are they here yet? Grandfather looked out the window. Then a black car stopped in front of the gate. Back then, a car was a luxury item. I don't think I even had one classmate whose family owned a car. So it only makes sense that the men coming out of the car look respectable. Grandfather and I ran out to welcome them. Welcome. I'm Takano. Thank you for coming today. May I take your jacket? I greeted them and filled the role we decided ahead of time. Though my being relaxed by my grandfather's silliness ended at that point. Both my grandfather and I were stiff with anxiety as we greeted them now that the moment was here. Nice to meet you, Doctor. And hello, young lady. Are you his granddaughter? Yes. Mio, please say hello. Very nice to meet you. I'm Mio Takano. What a good girl. I'm here in place of Koizumi-sensei. Something came up and he can't make it today. He's very sorry. I see. I'm sorry to hear that. The person who set up everything isn't here. My grandfather even had his treasured wine ready, just as they promised 2 weeks ago. Everyone, let me introduce you. This is Dr. Hifumi Takano. Dr. Takano was a leading member of the Research Center for the Prevention of Epidemics in Manchuria during the war. He made many advances in developing synthetic food and synthetic alcohol as measures against malnutrition and ration shortages. Nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me. There's a fuck ton of them. And they're all called bureaucrat. The men are even older than my grandfather. They take off their hats one at a time to greet him. Their beards, expensive-looking canes, and glasses tell me they are very high up in the society. Grandfather bows to each one of them. Everyone, please come into the study. Please excuse the mess. Come in. Mio, serve tea for everyone. Yes. I wasn't nervous at all earlier, but now I think I'm the most nervous one. I'm not the one making the presentation, and I'm not the one being evaluated, so it's ridiculous that I'm feeling so nervous. I don't know if I should use that as my excuse, but I was so nervous that I knocked over the thermos I had filled to the brim with hot water, and ruined the black tea I'd chosen specifically for this day. I apologized to my grandfather and started to boil water again. I just need enough for the guests. By the time I had cups of tea and cookies ready, Grandfather's presentation was at its key part.
It pierces the blood or lymph vessels and spreads to the spinal cord, and from there it travels along the cerebrospinal fluid to the brain. I've confirmed many cases of encephalitis after autopsies. Oh my god, medical terms. Eosinophilic meningoencephalitis is known to be caused by roundworm, and we predict its behavior to be extremely similar.
Grandfather said, walking between samples and formalin jars and pointing to several as he gave his explanation. There are over 100 formalin jars in here with parts of brains in them. They were all very dusty, so I spent a few days cleaning them. I'm rather proud to see the sparkling jars all lined up like this.
However, roundworms induce an extremely wide range of symptoms. A headache, narcosis, derangement. None of those are characteristic symptoms of roundworms. On the other hand, symptoms of Hinamizawa Syndrome are very specific to that disease. You're saying one of them is to claw out one's own throat, yes? Exactly. Some soldiers witnessed it just before their fellows died. Such self-mutilation was never seen before in any disease. It only occurs in Hinamizawa Syndrome. Also, since that symptom was only seen with terminal stage patients, I believe that's a means of exodus, something we've seen before in several parasites. Parasites mature inside of an organism, reproduce, then leave the host and look for the next one. So what do you think about the fact that the cases were only seen in the soldiers from Hinamizawa, even though other soldiers touched their blood, which must have been full of parasitic eggs or larvae? Don't you think there was a possibility of them getting infected? I suspected things like an incubation period, but since it was limited to people from the Hinamizawa region, I believe something such as the unique local climate must play a role. I'll talk about that in the next part, but the ancient indigenous beliefs of Hinamizawa have... That can't be possible, Dr. Takano! I've never heard of parasites behaving socially. Yes, well, that is one of the revolutionary discoveries in the Hinamizawa Syndrome.
The elderly gentlemen mumbled to each other while pointing at the data. With that, I finally realized things aren't going too well.
Dr. Takano, I've been reviewing your data while listening to your gracious presentation. First of all, it is simply impossible for parasites to control human minds. Human thoughts are controlled by the brain, which is a work of art created by God. Furthermore, ideology is an extremely advanced aspect of human thought. It's an advanced capability bestowed only to humans on this planet. Yet you would say parasites intervene in that? Please, that's absurd. I agree. Ideology can also be considered a manner of thought that prioritizes the whole over the individual. In other words, that's the most important prerequisite condition for a society. There's no way parasites would be gifted with that, when their only demand is to pass on their genes. In the field of biology, there has never once been a discovery of sociality or eusociality within parasites. But there are cases of parasites interfering with the host's behavior. You're misunderstanding one thing, Dr. Takano. The principle that drives parasites capable of controlling their host is always reproduction and propagation. It's only that primitive concept. Even in the example you used before, of a rat infected with Toxoplasma gondii and losing its aversion to cats, the altered behavior is simply a means to let their host be eaten by a better host in order to change hosts. That's just like a grasshopper infected with a horsehair worm drowning itself. Once a horsehair worm matures, it becomes aquatic. When that happens, it guides a grasshopper to the water and drowns them, then enters the environment it's adapted for. Exactly. The suicidal act of clawing out one's throat corresponds to that in the case of Hinamizawa Syndrome. For example, guinea worms escape the body by having the host scratch the affected area. Indeed, the purpose of all these parasites is reproduction. For them to infest the brain, God's masterpiece. No, infecting the brain itself isn't that strange. But to say they infest it and influence human ideology is frankly delusional. In fact, that's a dangerous idea. I don't think it's that strange that Hinamizawa, in an isolated culture, developed its own unique faith. There are actually many examples of that all over Japan. So are you saying all of them were due to parasites? or that they were all due to cultural reasons, except the one in Hinamizawa, which was caused by parasites. How do you establish the distinction? Well, as I said in my autopsies on the Hinamizawan soldiers who died in the war, there was sufficient evidence to believe. Excuse me, Dr. Takano, I don't think you've gathered enough case studies to call it clinical data. Furthermore, as you said, it was during the war. No, I mean, as I explained in the next part, Hinamizawa Syndrome develops when one experiences suspicion, nervousness, and stress, and becomes emotionally unbalanced. I think it's a unique approach to suspect some manner of commonality if there were several cases of unique and bizarre self-mutilation, such as clawing one's throat out. Yet that's all the more reason it's unreliable. Maybe it was just a coincidence that such rare cases happened under abnormal circumstances like the war. I believe you witnessed the convergence of coincidences, and trapped in a gestaltist view, deluded yourself into finding a pattern. To prove otherwise, you would need an enormous amount of clinical data on Hinamizawa Syndrome patients. But ethically, that's impossible to prove. The natives' act of recognizing it as a curse suggests it's more within the realm of culture-bound syndromes. And you think that it is a delusional parasitic disease? I hate to say this, but I think you admire the beliefs of the Hinamizawans a little too much. And as a result, you yourself have been taken in by their culture-bound reactive syndrome. Actually, that happens quite often with people who research more unusual fields of study. We're trying to be careful ourselves. The more they talk, the paler my grandfather's face becomes. I was just stunned myself. We've never heard of parasites like that. That's impossible. It was just a coincidence and there isn't enough data. The talk goes on, and every time grandfather says something, they dismiss it like that. Before he knew it, my grandfather could only hold his silence before their criticisms. Well, no revolutionary discovery is accepted at first. Maybe this research of yours is one of those things. Even if it's ridiculed at first, it may achieve recognition in later years. That happens all the time. I'm just an amateur. I'm just a private researcher who didn't graduate from an elite college. Nor do I belong to any academic clique. I don't have any connections with experts or research centers. That's why this is all I can do. Is the Hinamizawa Syndrome real? Or is it just my delusion, just like you all say it is? To find out, I need your help. Of course, if this was the discovery of the century, it would create a major uproar. After all, you're suggesting that human culture and ideology is all the will of parasites, and our frontal lobe is a place for them to live. What an audacious theory. If a link between the existence of the Hinamizawa Syndrome and the disease carrier's belief in Oishiro-sama could be established, then it would be possible to explain all religions, no, all cultural divisions on Earth. What a magnificent and unique idea. Dr. Takano, instead of showing people like us your essays in secret, you should publish a book about it for the general public. Grandfather looks at the ground, his fists trembling a little. But their words were far too cruel. I don't know anything about academics. I'm just a little girl. I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but Grandfather worked so hard by himself until today. But to prove his research and delve further into it, he needs sponsors. Yet those sponsors are casting him away, calling his research a delusion. That's outrageous. Like asking which came first, the chicken or the egg. Besides, if his research was at the level those cheeky men want to see, he wouldn't need their help. But they're saying that they can't help him unless they see some results that are beyond the level of private research. In any field, doesn't research always start out with just a little idea? If you can prove its existence beforehand, then what's the point of researching it to begin with? If a wild idea can't be the subject of research, how did we gain any knowledge at all? But never mind that. When Mr. Koizumi came 2 weeks ago, didn't he say they were really interested in his research? What's going on? This is the complete opposite of what he said. Huh. Okay, where are we now? Yes. I think this is very interesting research.
Oh, are we back in 1980, something?
The human brain still holds many secrets. Dr. Takano's idea is an extremely unique one. It seems impossible to ignore, especially from a eugenics perspective. Humans are not God's children. We're simply animals who underwent the baptism of evolution. As such, according to Darwin, there will be differences in that evolution based on our environment. In other words, humans can be either superior or inferior. As a nation, we must think how we can maintain good bloodlines and how we can leave good genes behind. If we do not raise that as a national policy and research towards it, then by the next century, mankind may fall to a fatal position on the hierarchy. Dr. Takano's research has the potential of encompassing more than just parasitic diseases. If the evil, inferior humans we shouldn't let breed can actually be explained by a disease instead of genetics, then it becomes possible to correct their behavior through surgery. This feels awful. As a result, we can leave wonderful people for our future. From the eugenic point of view, Dr. Takano's research should get started immediately. It's possible this could be the greatest discovery since Moniz's invention of the lobotomy. If causality between infectious diseases and an individual's nature could be established, this would be more than Nobel Prize worthy. Koizumi-sensei, thank you for giving us this chance. Okay, no, we are still in the past. Takano-kun is a single-minded and passionate man, but he is not good at dealing with people. He's been working on his research all by himself. But now he's hit the limit of what one person can do, and he needs help. Please, everyone, listen to what Takano-kun has to say. Oh, you don't even need to ask, Sensei. We are the ones who should be thanking you for this opportunity. We're already willing to help him. In fact, the more urgent matter will be arranging jurisdictions within society. I would like to thank you for giving me an opportunity to be involved in such a unique research project at this age. There was a knock on the door. The sliding door opened and the owner peeked in. Excuse me. There's someone asking for you. May I bring him? Someone? Who could it be? The owner whispered into Koizumi's ear and his face turned pale all of a sudden. Please let him in. No, I'll come greet him with you. As Koizumi stood up, 2 pairs of footsteps reached the door. Sensei! I didn't expect you to be here. Elder. Koizumi-kun. Long time no see. I have something I need to tell you today. Yes. If you need to tell me something, I'm all ears. Please, go ahead. The old man known as Koizumi was not someone whose status could be taken lightly. Although he had retired, he was still powerful enough to wield great influence as a fixer. So from his meek attitude, it was easy to figure out what kind of person this man must be. The old man held onto his bodyguard's shoulder as he walked. He had an expensive-looking cane in his other hand. He couldn't even walk on his own because of his old age, but his intense, commanding presence hadn't declined one bit. I'll get straight to the point. Your friend's research. You need to put a stop to that. Huh? What do you mean? Koizumi-kun. He must take his knowledge of Hinamizawa Syndrome to his grave. Nobody should touch it. If anyone looks into it, well, if you poke a bush, a snake will come out. A big, fat snake, too. It would pain me to just watch you get swallowed by it. That's why I'm here to give you some advice. Can your friends wait for a little? So, how about it? Do you want to have some drinks with me in a different room? Yes! I'll come with you straight away. Koizumi realized that he was being pressured. He didn't know which direction it was coming from, but clearly some authorities weren't comfortable with the research on Hinamizawa Syndrome, and were trying to stop him from supporting it. Koizumi-kun, do you remember the Marco Polo Bridge incident? Okay. And now we're back here. This is utter nonsense. We came here today expecting to hear a more objective side. Normally, we wouldn't come all the way here for something like this. But since Koizumi-sensei asked us, we didn't have a choice. This really was a waste of time, but in a way, it was a good thing we came. We were able to give you some advice. You should take up bonsai instead of wasting the rest of your life on this. Bonsai is great. I agree. It's not healthy to just stare at formalin jars in a study. But it sure is a unique subject. If you want, I'll introduce you to the chief of a publishing company. The general public loves things like this, you know. They aren't even trying to hide their hostility. They're laughing at my grandfather, denouncing him, and saying things to denigrate not only his research, but his personality as well. If they are simply trying to provoke him, any response would just be giving them what they want. Even in this very moment, grandfather tried to remain a noble researcher and a proud human being. He's no longer trembling. On the contrary, he apologized to them for taking up their time and told them he had no intention of keeping them any longer. We'll give this article back to you, though it'd be so much easier if we could actually call it an article. One of the elderly gentlemen tossed it back to him. Grandfather couldn't catch it in time. The article he worked so hard on fell onto the floor, and the papers scattered all over on the carpet. The elderly gentleman left the study without even apologizing for it. I faintly remember this part. Everyone else followed suit. As they left, they trod all over my grandfather's article. It looked like grandfather's expression didn't change, but I could see it warping. I could see the wall of research grandfather bore crunching and warping sadly. Yep. I jumped. I grabbed onto the elderly gentleman's leg. I don't hate him. If I were asked if I hated him or not, the answer would be yes, but that's not the point here. What I really can't stand is his foot stepping all over my grandfather's article. Don't step on it! Don't step on it! Grandpa worked so hard on it! Don't step on it! I just wanted to move the foot that's standing on his papers. But the foot doesn't move, no matter how hard I push or pull, as if it's rooted to the floor. I felt someone grabbing me from behind. It was my grandfather. Please excuse my granddaughter. Don't worry about this. We'll clean it up. Don't step on them! I'm telling you not to step on my grandpa's article! My screams don't mean a thing to them. They completely ignored my screams. They continued to step on the papers and left the study. Only my grandfather and I remain in there now. My grandfather is still grabbing the back of my collar. I don't have any words left to say, only cries. My grandfather is determined not to show any emotion. He doesn't even open his mouth. So I have to cry for him. Just then, my grandfather slapped me in the face. That startled me. I'm crying for him, so why did he slap me? Then I understand. Grandfather is the one who wants to cry. But he's enduring, so I shouldn't cry either. I wipe my eyes and my runny nose, then I silently turn my eyes to the papers on the carpet, just like my grandfather. Sorry, Mio. I don't understand why he's apologizing. I thought he was going to complain about the rudeness. If I had worked harder, this wouldn't have happened. Until today, you helped me so much, and it was all for nothing. Sorry about that. How courageous he is. Even after that disaster, he's still concerned about me. I shook my head and put my hands on the floor. I tried to gather up the papers, but then they began to fall. My tears are overflowing again, blurring the ink on the papers. These are all handwritten by grandfather. He was so happy that finally there was someone who understood his research. He was so happy. He spent all night writing these. But they stepped on them. They might as well have stepped on my grandfather's very soul. I didn't work hard enough. If I had done more, this wouldn't have happened. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll work even harder. I won't give up because of something like this. I don't know if he's saying that to me or to himself. Don't worry. God is watching. I have to believe that I'll gain recognition. That day will come. That's why I have to keep working harder. Weird similarity. This probably doesn't mean anything, but like,
He's saying the same things that Rena says when she has Hinamizawa Syndrome. I just find that kind of interesting, you know? Grandfather says that all the time, but I know the truth. God only plays with people's fate. He doesn't save anyone out of goodwill. That's why he let this happen to my grandfather, even though he's worked so hard and so humbly until today. That's why he let such a horrible thing happen to me when I was still an innocent little girl. Grandfather keeps repeating himself, but I know the truth. God exists. The existence Grandfather believes in is real, but there's no mercy to be found in God. He delivers unreasonable fates and makes us call it a challenge. I can't tell my grandfather that, of course. I ask God once more, like I did on the day of the thunderstorm. Why? Why can't you give my grandfather's effort and hard work the recognition it deserves? Grandfather told me that he'll gather up the papers, so I should put away the teacups. I nodded silently and put the teacups that hadn't even been touched onto the serving cart. As I pushed it out of the study, Grandfather told me. He told me to close the door after I leave. I always close the door when I leave. He doesn't need to remind me. But that's what he wants. So without saying anything, I closed the door. Then as I walked away from the study, I heard my grandfather sobbing. Tears filled my eyes once more. Sadness and disappointment. I almost feel angry with myself for not being able to do anything for him. Then I felt a cool breeze on my wet cheeks. The breeze was blowing in from a cracked open window. The curtain was flapping gently in that breeze. I heard the cry of the Higurashi. As I listened to them, I calmed down gradually. If I can ease Grandfather's pain by crying, I'll cry in his place. But that won't help. On the contrary, he started to cry because I did. I'm being useless here. I remember that day. I remember the reason why I'm alive now. If he hadn't come and saved me, I would have spent the last days of my life lying in the corner of the bathroom as a human-shaped piece of meat. Grandfather saved me. He gave me back my rights. The right to walk, the right to stand up, the right to wear clothes, the right to eat, the right to speak, and the right to think. In other words, the right to live as a human being. Grandfather took action right after he got the phone call from me. He found my house, and he found out which orphanage I was sent to after struggling through the sloppily filled records of the public office. Then he saved me. Of course, he was working on his research then. He spent his precious research time on saving me, a perfect stranger. I vowed that if his heart failed, I'd rip my heart out and give it to him. But of course, his heart is fine. So he doesn't need a heart. He needs something else that's equally important. That's something only I can give him in this whole world. I clenched my fists, and held them so tightly that my nails left marks. New fucking song. I now know what I'm supposed to do with this new life as Mio Takano. I finally know. I know the research why the new me was born. I know the purpose of Mio Takano. To fulfill a wish and weave a desired future. Cool. The strength of a string is how strong your will is. Hold on, is this a remix of Dear You? Yo. A noble and strong wish will come true. Okay, yeah, it is. Fucking cat jam, let's go. I thought I knew of my grandfather's greatness, but I actually didn't know the half of it. For me to... I can't speak. For me to be able to really help him, I have to reach his level. All my lessons lead back to my grandfather. There wasn't a single subject I could ignore. Right now, studying hard is what I can do for him. Homeroom teacher? I've been a teacher for a long time, but I've never seen such a hard-working student. You've learned not only academically, but socially as well. You've
you've made a great deal of friends.
I have a goal which I can only reach by studying hard. Also, I know how powerless an isolated genius is. That's why I needed to learn to socialize.
That's not enough.
I'm not even close to where I want to be. Entering college is only a step forward.
Oh, you're a bit older, I'm guessing.
What matters is what I learned there.
I'm not even close. I'm not even close to being able to help my grandfather. I'm so proud of you. You can go to Tokyo or Ochanomizu University, or any college of your choice. Nothing will stop you. The most important thing for you is that the school will teach you what you want to learn. A big decision that inhabits a tiny soul. If my life is heavier than the earth, then my decision is heavier than the earth. Do I have what I need to be able to truly understand Hinamizawa Syndrome and help grandfather in his research? I don't need compromises or excuses. The heights I seek are lofty and precipitous. If this isn't enough, not even close. My classmates are such idiots, acting as if they're winners in life just because they entered the school. A college is simply a place to learn what I need to know. If this self-proclaimed best school isn't worth my time, I'm not interested. I didn't expect a talented woman like you to end up at this parasite research center. I'm sure everyone wanted you, huh? I assumed you were interested in something bigger. I want to study and research parasites. I've worked hard to earn the right to study here. Aren't I qualified to learn? Yes, of course. There's no reason why we would refuse someone who got the top score on the entrance exam. Welcome to the Parasite Research Center. People usually aren't that interested in our field. There aren't too many researchers who study it. That's why there's still a lot of unknown elements compared to other fields. That's quite true. The study of parasites is a mysterious world. Or rather, it's an ignorant one. An ignorant world where the preconception that parasites can't possibly control humans pervades. And those ignorant people laughed at grandfather and stepped all over his article. There are still many unsolved mysteries in the world of parasites. I'm here to solve them. I came here to help the people who want to solve them. A wish that's guaranteed to come true is not called a wish. That is fate, not a wish. I weave fate. Fate is an absolute power to control people in the world, not just an individual. Yo, this is sick. Learning isn't enough for me. I have to be able to research with my grandfather. And so, I don't ignore the means to gain the help my grandfather couldn't get. Grandfather's research isn't complete just when it's finished being written on a desk. I need the help of plenty of people to present it to the world, so his great work will be praised by many. Yes, that's correct. This is an association only the top graduates of the Imperial University are allowed to join. Therefore, as only 7 people per year are allowed to join, it's a small group compared to a normal organization of alumni. However, its solidarity is unrivaled. Thank you for inviting me to such a gathering. I'm honored. I would like to take the lowest seat. Oh no, we can't let someone with such accomplishments and experience sit in the lowest seat. I'm sure everyone will welcome you. The cabinet minister and several important government officials, company presidents, and company advisors will be here. They'll all need you, and they'll provide the help you need. Koizumi-sensei belongs to this association, right? He was my grandfather's best friend. What a coincidence. I see. I'm sure Koizumi-sensei will be glad to find out that you'll be joining. An isolated genius is a useless one. People live in society. Society is made up of connections between people. Nobody can ignore that. I do my best as an individual. But to gain the power that can't be achieved as a mere individual, I have to rely on my connections in society. It's all for one purpose. My only wish is Mio Takano. Yes, I can't spare any effort. My certain conviction will forge a certain future. Nobody can interfere. Nobody can stop me. I won't allow the die to roll a 1. I won't admit that diligent efforts can be erased by a mere train accident. I'm going to make all the dice roll 6s. I won't entrust the die to God. I won't give in to luck. The only people who pray to God are people who don't want to work hard. I don't trust God. I'm going to create results myself. My strong will is going to create a certain future that God can't possibly prevent. This is a different way to become a god than the one my grandfather taught me. This is a way to become a god while still alive. When I realized it, I became truly free. Free from the sadness of losing my parents and my miserable life after that. Free from grandfather's tears when his article was stepped on. That's right. I'll be above God. I'll be an existence that God's caprices can't even touch. I'll make people recognize grandfather's research. That's the future I wish for. The future I promised will come to pass. People will fight over grandfather's article. People will respectfully read the same article that was once ridiculed and stepped on. Even if grandfather dies before that day comes, I won't cry over something like that. Because he already taught me. Even after being buried, one can be resurrected. I'm going to complete his great work, and the whole world will praise him. Grandfather, go me, right? Grandfather will resurrect and become a god. He will be eternal. That's an everlasting bond. A bond not even a train accident can break. A bond not even a die that rolls a 1 can disturb. Since the day of the train accident, my die has kept rolling 1s over and over. But I didn't give up. I kept working hard until today. I'll rise above the die. I'll decide what to roll on it. I'll decide my own fate. I'll do that with my unshakable willpower. You go, girl. Even though you're a villain. Alright. Well, I think we're probably coming near the end of this part of the chapter, but I'm still gonna end this episode here. Little under an hour of content because of the Sotsu discussion earlier on, but hey, hopefully it was a good one, you know? Regardless, though, that's gonna be it for this episode, guys. If you liked it, then be sure to press the like button, and if you didn't like it, then fuck you too. Remember to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all my videos and stuff. And as always, my name is Godzi, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye! Yeah.